All right, it's Bronzebird here with another video. So, as we live in this era of what many are calling the Great Reset, coming off of the heels of the Karina, and looking at the world of what's going on as we encroach on this idea of World War III and what the well, the WEF keeps talking about, and what they're chiming in about. It's a lot of different things that folks, even myself, need to think about as the future seems to be glooming so fast. And remember what it was when Karina first started. People was warned about it. They was like, hey, take care of yourself. Make sure you get your Lysol. Make sure you get your hand sanitizer. Make sure you clean up after yourself. Don't get sick. And then the next thing you know, they went ahead and did a lockdown fast. But then they said first responders need to be out there. They need to work. You need to make sure that you take care of the people of the city and stuff like that. And what happened? When people went outside, or I guess this is because my city did it, they had this whole entire thing where people were like banging pots and yelling and, saying good job and all this other stuff, because it was like people were risking their life on the behest of the Karina in order to make a living and still be able to get the money in their pocket. Crazy times between 2020 and at least 2022. And so with that being said, a lot of things come into motion. A lot of things are coming into play. What is the society trying to gear up in the future? Or I would say 7 years with 2030, in which they want everybody to be on the same program about, and especially about this idea of having the one world government. One thing's for sure, a concept that keeps coming up, especially because this has been a very common talking point by the WEF, World Economic Forum. They wants to institute this idea of a 15-minute city. What is a 15-minute city? What does it entail? What does it do? Basically, where you live, in the perimeter of where you live, you can travel or go anywhere you want outside the comfort of your home, preferably in a gated community. 15 minutes. Where you can travel to the store outside your house, 15 minutes away from where you live. You can go to the park, probably less time than that. But basically the concept is gated communities or a city where everything is pretty much landlocked, where you don't have to travel far for things that you essentially need. That's the thing that they're selling to you about 15-minute cities. But I'm going to give my opinion after I read this article, or what it could be or what it could mean. So let me show you what's on my screen. So right here, this is a article with Forbes. So it says here, the 15-minute city, what they are and how to build them. Shout out to Lori Winkless. Focusing on making amenities more accessible to city dwellers come with a host of benefits. Oh, really? If you're an urbanite, how long does it take you to get to a supermarket? What about a public park, pharmacist, or primary school? For proponents of the 15-minute city planning concept, the answer to all of those questions should be less than 15 minutes. On first glance, the concept is very simple: to create neighborhoods and cities where a person can meet a host of their basic needs via a short walk or bike ride. Larger cities also tend to include public transit in the mix. Exactly what defines short varies from place to place. Copenhagen, for example, adopted a 5 minutes to everything model back in 2016. A maximum 5-minute walk to all amenities and public transport. For Melbourne, the goal was a 10-minute threshold, or more specifically, a 20-minute return trip to all amenities. Other cities, including Glasgow, Portland, and Hamilton, New Zealand, aim for 20 minutes. And while the specific time period differs, the central tenet, enhancing the accessibility of neighborhoods through design and active transit, remains the same. The concept, which is increasingly being generalized to the X-minute city, is revolutionizing the way we think about our urban homes. The planning model was formally proposed by French Colombian scientist and Sorbonne professor Carlos Moreno in 2016. Elements of it have been around since at least the 1960s. Moreno credits Jane Jacobs as a major source of inspiration, and it shares many of the same principles as walkable, mixed-use urban design. But Moreno's 15-minute framing of it grabbed public attention. In French, it's called La Ville du Quart d'Heure. And it's in France that it was first put into practice thanks to the support of Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris. Moreno's motivation for developing the model was to disrupt the traditional car-focused approach that dominates urban design thinking and replace it with one focus on hyperproximity. Not only, he argued, would this result in huge emission reductions, it would also lead to more sustainable, human-centric urban environments. There's a growing body of evidence that suggests such neighborhoods promote everything from social cohesion to public health. His was a vision that Hidalgo bought into wholeheartedly. She made it a cornerstone of her successful 2020 re-election campaign, saying that my project is about proximity, participation, collaboration, and ecology. In Paris, we all feel we have no time. We are always rushing to one place or another, always trying to gain time. That is why I am convinced we need to transform the city so Parisians can learn, do sports, have healthcare, shop within 15 minutes of their home. In some ways, this was a natural progression for Hidalgo. Since her election in 2014, prioritizing active transit has been a key focus. She has created hundreds of kilometers of bicycle lanes throughout the city. She's closed off scenic stretches of the Seine riverbanks to cars, by one estimate, removing 23,000 car trips from the area. And two of the city's Place de la République and Plaza de la Bastille were completely redesigned to prioritize pedestrians and cyclists. All those efforts seem to be paying off. According to the UN, Paris managed to cut its carbon emissions by 20% between 2004 and 2018, a period during which either Hidalgo or her predecessor, Bertrand Delano, were mayor. Even so, the pace of change in the city since 2020 is staggering. Urbanist Stephanie Kirkland was quoted in Politico as saying, Paris is the only city that has been so aggressive in creating infrastructure. People always assume it has always been a bicycle city, but it's only been 3 years in the works. The COVID-19 pandemic played a significant role in accelerating this shift. Speaking to Town and Country magazine, Deputy Mayor David Billiard said, for the first time, people experienced the city without cars and they understood we can live without cars and it's better. The same thing happened in other cities too. As lockdown saw workers stay home, once busy roads became quieter, safer, and cleaner. Within a few months, officials and individual residents started to take advantage of this extra space. Temporary infrastructures like parklets, playgrounds, and cycleways started popping up, and some ended up becoming permanent. Access to outdoor spaces, as well as to local cafes, shops, and other amenities, was a lifeline for millions during that time. Neighbors became friends, or at least they started sharing their home baking. For many, the pandemic fundamentally transformed their relationship with their local areas. As it any wonder then, that people started paying attention to how well or badly provisioned their neighborhoods were. As Lisa Chamberlain of the World Economic Forum, WEF, so y'all can understand, succinctly explained, the 15-minute cities went from a nice to have to a rallying cry. The pandemic created an urgency around equitable urbanism that sidelined arguments about bike lanes and other amenities that have roiled communities for years. Global organizations such as the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group took notice too. In July 2020, they published a framework for cities to build back better, and the 15-minute city concept was at the heart of it. The framework included a wide range of case studies from Bogota to Berlin to Shanghai to Seattle. C40 have continued to champion the concept ever since. Just last week, they launched the Green and Thriving Neighborhoods Program, a funded project that aims to develop integrated climate actions at the neighborhood scale in cities across the globe. Creating X-minute neighborhoods has become a goal for many urban areas. But how can we actually measure their accessibility? In other words, what's the best way to quantify X? Researchers from the University of Canterbury, New Zealand, have focused on this question in their latest paper. They write, different approaches can ignore inequalities amongst residents. For example, if the average time is considered, then by definition, approximately 50% of the residents will have to travel further. In the study, they look at 543 urban areas, the USA's largest 500 cities, and all 43 urban areas of NZ. The amenities they use are pharmacies, supermarkets, parks, and primary schools, chosen based on data availability and alignment with established planning policies that create health-promoting cities. In general, X-minute statistics represent the city's access to all of the amenities under consideration. This differs from amenity statistics that evaluate the accessibility of just one amenity. So, if you live a 3-minute walk from a park, 4 from a school, 6 from a supermarket, and 8 from a pharmacy, your block would be assigned an amenity time of 3 minutes, but an X-minute time of 8 minutes. Aggregating those X times for a whole neighborhood or city provides a broader picture of how accessible a neighborhood is. But representing proximity through statistics is tricky. Do you choose the percentage of residents within X minutes, the maximum travel time, the population weighted mean/median? It's a fairly long list of options, and each one offers benefits and drawbacks. For example, the metric you chose may obscure important information. In the paper, the author discussed Paris, California. 40% of its residents are within 20 minutes of all amenities, which sounds great, but over 10% of residents live more than 75 minutes away, making those people amenity poor. They also highlight damaging inequities in planning. Riverdale, a major Black community in southern Chicago, has been isolated from its basic amenities. There, a travel time of 1 hour to a supermarket is typical, and the effects can be seen in the health statistics, with 84% of residents at risk of food insecurity. As part of this, the researchers have developed an interactive visualization tool that maps and measures the X-minute and amenity statistics for a range of amenities. The publicly available dashboard focuses only on NZ's 43 urban areas, but their approach allows them to directly compare cities and to investigate the impact of different metrics on defining proximity. They say that such data provides residents and policymakers with an enhanced understanding of how our communities perform, thus allowing a better evaluation of future decisions and ability to monitor progress. Even so, there are still lots of measurement challenges involved in adopting the X-minute city approach. For example, where do you draw your geographical boundary? If the boundary contains a significant portion of rural residents, the statistics will underestimate access for urban residents. What amenities should be included? The types of access that communities require will vary across age, gender, religion, and culture. If that's not considered the author's right, we may unintentionally create monotype communities and therefore fail to realize the benefits of diverse cities. And finally, what is an acceptable X? The goal of the X Minute City vision is to enable and encourage people to walk or cycle to their destinations. But the travel time that people consider feasible will vary by the individual and the amenity itself. You might be happy to walk 15 minutes to a pharmacy, but perhaps that's too far to carry your groceries. The paper's authors conclude that while the X Minute City concept is extremely helpful in discussions on how to best create inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities, the use of a single travel time is too simplistic and could result in access poor residents being overlooked. As the lead author, Dr. Tom Logan, wrote in the conversation, the greater aim should be to improve accessibility as much as possible to reduce our dependence on cars and reclaim our neighborhoods for people. This will benefit our health, sustainability, and communities. And while reading this article, there's a lot of things to really point to and understand. In this world right now, they're so focused on zero emissions, getting people out of their car and more into public transportations, but even public transportation start to come with a price as well. The idea that I can see from this point on is usually having something replacing buses and maybe trains with more vehicles like autonomous shuttles and more or less bikes, of course, scooters, EVs, and all these different things. Now, I will tell you this. In hindsight, it does seem like a positive thing, but I need guys and people listening to understand 15-minute cities comes with the idea of enhanced surveillance. Enhanced surveillance means you have no control. As they preach from 23rd and on, you will own nothing and be happy. The concept of creating affordable housing comes with a price. Being able to take in a roommate you don't know, and being able to live on top of each other within a 15-minute radius or 15-minute city. That means that pretty much the only way for freedom is to live out in the suburbs. But even with that, they don't want you living out in the suburbs. They want you living inside these cities. Something to think about. One of the type of things that where it's going to be gated communities and all these promises about having all of the amenities around you. But again, it comes with a price. As we can see, especially how it is in European cities, it may work out well because their urban planning out in European cities is actually better than how it is in American cities. Suburbs are more spaced out in American cities, whereas cities is compacted, and usually the way that they design their American cities means that people are all on top of each other, such as places like New York, maybe places in the South, or Boston and things like that, or other cities around America. But my point of making this video is to say, pay attention to these 15-minute cities, man. You know, a lot of people may think like this is a way easier life, but it comes with a lot of prices that you guys are going to see soon. So give me your thoughts in the comment section. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Peace.